Okay, so yesterday we reviewed your submission for the summary, right, and suggested some improvements on that. So that was question 3A of section B, paper 1, which is the actual summary question. What's left, right? So I said today we're moving on to writing, but there's something left, and that is question 3B of the summary. And this is what's known as the short response question. So what they do over here normally, they give you a situation, sort of a role play, as you can see on screen, that they're asking you to imagine yourself as Kent Linwall, one of the owners of the hotel, right? And then they present a situation or a question or an interview question or an opinion or something of the sort. So in this case, you are interviewed by a local news program about the effect of that hotels are having on the forest environment. Right, so this one is about effect that hotels are having on the environment in general. Give your answer to the interviewer's question using information from the text. So that is important, but it's not open-ended. What is the question? The question is, some local people think that your tree hotel might have a negative effect on our forest environment. Okay, that's a statement. People think that your tree hotel might have a negative effect on our forest environment. What is your opinion and why? Right? And so remember, you are role playing as one of the owners of the hotel. What your opinion is regarding this statement, is the tree hotel having a negative effect on the environment or not, needs to be based on the text, right? Text B for the summary. So, since we've already worked our way through this when writing the summary, what would you say, right? Just yes or no. Is the tree hotel having a negative effect on the environment? Yes or no? Amaraza? Right, you don't think so. Haram says no, and that is correct. Okay. Now, how do you gain marks in this question? It's a 5-mark question. That means you need 5 valid points. First is stating your opinion. Both of you said no, it is not having a negative effect on the forest environment. Assalamu alaikum, Baba. We're just working our way through question 3B and then we'll move on to directed writing. So you get your 1 mark. Now again, keep in mind that your opinion needs to be based on the text and you need to understand the question properly. This is a very straightforward question, the specimen. Right? The actual session papers that have come up can give you a different situation. For example, in the text, something might be presented in a negative context, but the question might ask you about the positive aspect of those things. And so you would need to, form your opinion according to what the question is expecting and what the text is saying. Right? So it needs a bit of thought before just saying yes or no or good or bad or whatever kind of opinion is required. Okay, so coming back, 5 marks. 1 mark for the opinion. You've got your 1 mark. Both of you said no, it's not harming the forest environment. Now, the why question, right? That's going to give you 4 marks. How are you going to get those 4 marks? What you need to do is you need to find 2 evidences from the text to support your opinion. You're saying it's not harming the environment. Okay, tell me where in the text is anything given that either it is not harming the environment or it is helping or preserving or protecting or conserving the environment. Right? Because if you're saying we're not harming it, either you say, oh, we're not doing so and so activity which is going to cause harm, or we've taken so and so measures to protect or conserve. So either of those work to support your opinion. So you need two pieces of evidence from the text itself, two different evidences, and then for each of those evidences, you need to offer some explanation, right, as to what it means. So you need to elaborate on that, you need to stretch it further. And so 1 mark each for the evidence from the text, and then 1 mark each for the explanation for those evidences. That gives you 4 marks plus the opinion, so that's how you get your 5 marks. So let's go to the text. I think we can move through this quickly. Tell me any two pieces of evidence from the text that show the environment, the forest environment is not being harmed. What was eco-friendly? Toilets were eco-friendly. Okay. So that is an evidence from the text. Okay. How would you explain that further? How would you elaborate or expand on that? Hmm. Okay, we'll come back to that. Anyone having a different piece of the text? You want me to scroll down? There's obviously something there as well. Although there there is there are other lines over here that could be used. Marza, anything? Really? Bakar, what about you? Are still around? Think you're having trouble with your connection today? No idea. Oh boy. Okay. Up to me, I guess. So this is how you look at it, right? You need to find. So here's one. An area forest had been sold for logging, right? They persuaded the forest's new owner to sell it to. So, right, determined to demonstrate that the natural forest environment had value beyond supplying timber. So, any one of these would be an evidence from the text, and then how would you go on to explain? Well, this one's pretty simple, right? So, it was bought from a company that was, from a logging company. So the trees and the entire forest was safe from being cut down, and the ecosystem and the wildlife both were in that way protected. Right? So the explanation doesn't have to be very long. It just needs to be a bit of elaboration on the evidence that you provided. Okay? Acha. Uh, I am obviously doing this verbally. Does that work, or do you need the whiteboard at this point? Guys? Aram, are you okay with the verbal explanation? Mirza? Okay. Since we're all on the same boat. Okay, what else can we find over here? Okay, sold for logging, supplying timber, we did that. Then, right, Haram mentioned the wait, no, not the underfloor heating, the environmentally friendly toilet, right? And what you do over here is that you include meals and showers are taken at the guest house, right? So it's just the toilet that's over there, it's environmentally friendly, so it's minimalistic. And so what you would explain is, right, extensive work and drainage and other infrastructure has not been built into the forest, right? And for that, guests have to go to the guest house, right, where those facilities are available, thereby, attempting to disturb the natural environment as little as possible, right? So there's no, there's no infrastructure in terms of drains and, having a kitchen and lots of cooking and disposal and pollution and all of that, right? So minimalistic setup over there. Okay. Then, uh, right, you obviously have over here activities such as noisy snowmobile safaris are definitely out, right? So any activity that would harm or disturb or threaten the wildlife, right, is uh, right, has not been included. This part over here, right, the deeply rooted commitment to the forest, the Lindwalls, if that's how it's pronounced, build the tree hotel sustainably. The mirror tube is even fitted with an infrared film visible to birds only that stops them from flying into it, right? So the wildlife has been taken into consideration, right? Wildlife will not be harmed, right? And on that note, I believe somewhere over here, they've also mentioned the way that the tree hotel, the tree houses have been built, right? Again, keeping in mind that they've been integrated into the, right, so over here they mentioned the facilities are barely basic and all of that, and that they've been integrated into the trees, right? It's a glass box perched high in the forest. It almost disappears into the foliage, right? So you can also include that saying that the tree houses are very well integrated into the forest environment, right? They don't stand out and they meld very well, right? So all of those points, and if we just actually take a look at the mark scheme. So I will put that on screen in fact because we're learning and you guys are having a bit of difficulty coming up with ideas. So there, shift the recording as well. Yeah, okay. So you can see, right, what they're expecting as a response. Right, he believes that tree hotel will not have a negative effect and or is likely to have a positive effect. Why? The land was bought from a logging company, right? That is evidence from the text. How will you develop that point? How will you explain it? The trees would have been cut down, right? They saved the land from logging, they preserved it for the future. Okay. The tree hotel is built sustainably, built with features to guard against damage to wildlife, right? And how will you explain that? The development, as they call it, They're not just concerned about local environment, but the wider commitment to the environment, right? In this, you can also, as a sustainability point, you can also mention the infrared film or the, snowmobile safari that will be coming up next. So activities allowed are not environmentally damaging, right? Or you can put in the snowmobile safari, the walking tours, the meeting the locals, any of these would all be considered, again, but only as a single point, as you see. How you explain it, noise pollution is avoided, guests are guided to follow set routes, they develop an understanding of feelings of community around the forest. Right, they're deeply committed to the forest environment, that line taken from the text. Right, it is not in the interest to spoil the environment since it is part of the appeal of the hotel, right? So that's an interesting take, that's a nice development. The whole selling point is we've built tree houses in a forest environment, which is very natural and soothing. So if we end up damaging the forest, then we're actually harming our business. That is a very good point of development. Aesthetically pleasing designs were carefully planned by architects. The hotel rooms are well hidden, so hidden the foliage that we just mentioned is the last point, right? So it complements the environment, did not spoil the view, right? They blend in very well. Limited facilities, so right, you don't have showers or cooking and all of that, right? A very basic eco-friendly toilet facility. And the mark scheme over here, right? Consistent and relevant perspective offered, ideas are developed and supported for full marks, 4 to 5. Okay. Is the approach to that question clear? Guys? Okay. So let's move back. So we're done with paper 1. And so let's move on to paper 2. Now the paper 2 is a writing paper. It is 2 hours long, 50 marks, 2 tasks to do. First is called the dietary writing task. The next is the composition. All right. So as I advised you before looking at the question, we're going to read the text. In this case, there are 2. Remember that there can possibly also be only one text, right? Whether the text offers 2 sides of the opinion, it probably will. So in this case, right, because they've offered you 2 separate texts, whatever the topic over here is, as you read, you will understand, and most likely one of these is in favor, the other is which one you'll have to figure out. But one is in favor of the topic of discussion, the other is putting forward points against it. Right? So here are both the texts. I'll give you a few minutes to go through both of them, and then we'll talk about it. All right? All right, so we're done reading. Now, before moving on to the question, what are the texts about? Could you tell me that? Traveling. Any particular context for the traveling, or just traveling in general? Hmm? Seems like general talk about traveling. Okay. It is general, yes. It's about traveling abroad to other countries actually, so it's, slightly specific, not too much. And which of these texts is in favor of traveling? Text A is in favor. travel? Text B is in favor, and I would say automatically that makes text A against, but let's not go with that. Right? The points that are presented here tell you that this person, Amira, if I'm right, so is giving points against traveling to other countries, whereas Li Ping is in favor. Now let's take a look at the question. Okay, write a magazine article. So that's something we have to discuss. How do we actually write a magazine article? For young people, okay, about the advantages and disadvantages of traveling to other countries. That is the focus, advantages and disadvantages of traveling to other countries. Now, what else does the question say? In your article, you should evaluate the ideas and opinions in both texts. So that's something we have to work on. Give your own views based on what you have read in the text about the advantages and disadvantages of traveling to other countries. Okay, base your article on what you have read in both texts, but be careful to use your own words. You have to rephrase just like you did for the summary. Address both the bullet points. Okay, so evaluate and give your own views to both of those tasks, and begin your article with a suitable headline. So because the question is asking you to begin your article with a suitable headline, you have to give a headline. In any case, articles do require headlines. So there are a few things we need to work on over here. First of all, we need to go back to the text and find points relevant to the advantages and disadvantages of traveling to other countries. Okay, so let's do that first. Oh, by the way, there's no insert for this. It's all in one paper, so just scroll back up. Okay, so let's work with the first text, right? Amira, 42 years, and what she, I believe, has to say about the disadvantages. So just for text A, tell me what points you would want me to highlight, include in our response, and I'll do that on screen. Let's get started. Anything? Sorry, could you repeat that and speak up a bit? High prices. Where exactly is that? Mm, okay, paying ridiculously high prices. Okay. So we have a first point. What else? There are a few. If I give you a hint, you have at least five, at least 5 points. Hmm? Fuel guzzling. Okay, fuel guzzling aeroplane. We have another. Come on, keep it coming. What else? Hmm? But what's the point? Oh, it is. Here you are. That's what you're talking about, right? Hmm. What else can we highlight? Come on, guys. What are eco-friendly? Right. And so, is that given here in the text? Okay, here. Amarza, Bakar, come on. No points from your side? Bakar? Come on. Amarza. I'm sorry, could you repeat that? Are you sitting far away from your mic or something? I can barely hear you. Haram, do you have anything else to add over here? Hmm. What else? Anything else? Again, sorry, could you repeat that? Over here, getting ripped off in restaurants? Okay, so I'd suggest something we could stay with friends and family. So what do we have? We've got something about environment, it's over here as well, right? Reducing your carbon footprint, right? So these 2 points are connected. Traveling abroad is, you have to use fuel guzzling aeroplanes and then fuel, which means pollution, right? So not eco-friendly. And over here, you can, if when you're traveling and not using a car, and you can use public transport or cycling or even walking. So that's the environmental aspect. When you're staying in your own country and by not traveling abroad and having a vacation at home in your own country, you can reduce your carbon footprint. So those are points and they're all linked. Then paying ridiculously high prices and getting ripped off in restaurants, these points are linked. Right? So the cost overall, not just of the travel, but of the experience and staying in that country. Obviously, tourists have to pay much more for the same services or experience than locals. Overall, right? Understanding our own country traditions, appreciating where we live, how many of us can claim that we really know where we came from. All of these are along the same lines. right? So getting to know and appreciate our own country and what it has to offer. Staying with friends, so meeting friends and family who are living in other parts of the country. An advantage of not traveling. So, right, the question is advantages and disadvantages of traveling to other countries. So, if if I'm giving an advantage of not traveling to another country, it sort of falls on the other side, right? Okay. So, right, I believe we've covered all the points here. Okay, let's go to the next text, then, text B. Right now, this one is in favor of traveling. So, what points does this text offer in favor of traveling to other countries? Again, there are about 5 possible points that you can highlight over here. Come again. Which line is that? Third and fourth. Opens their eyes to how fascinating and varied the world is. Is this what you're talking about? Okay. What else? So not over here. And try new and exotic foods. What else? Stepping outside your comfort zone. All right, there's quite a bit of text left, so obviously some more points you can highlight. Places are breathtakingly beautiful. We learn new culture. Okay, so you guys have shifted to the chat. I didn't notice that. Ah, all right, so we've done the culture thing. They are breathtakingly see places that are breathtakingly beautiful. Yes, go ahead. Okay, it's somewhere over here. We learn so much from each other. Okay, more similarities than differences. Okay, is there anything else? Okay, I was waiting. I was waiting for someone to highlight this. Good. Right, so you've got a number of points here. So opening their eyes, there meaning the young people, to how fascinating and varied the world is, and see places that are breathtakingly beautiful, those could be taken along the same lines. Practicing languages, learning about different cultures. Okay, that's another point. Stepping out of your comfort zone and growing up, right? Uh, that can be taken along the same lines. Learning from others, right? So meeting new people. They're also mentioning making friends. Uh, somewhere over here. So meeting new people and experiencing new cultures and making new friends. Learning about again the similarities of people around the world. You don't have to pay, right? And so the point they try to bring in over here is, you know, being less focused on material possessions, that, and you can link this. You can survive with what you can carry on your back, so just having a backpack, and obviously you won't be carrying too much. So not focused on, just consumerism and, going on tours and buying lots of things and etc. etc. No, just there for the experience. Okay, so these are the points we have now, right? What do we do? What do we do? The thing is, if I delve into evaluation, we don't have enough time at the moment. What I'd ask you to do, I guess, until next class is rephrase these points at least, right? So there's no Google Classroom homework for this one at the moment, but I will send you a screenshot and I want you to rephrase these points, right? So same meaning but different words. So put them in your own words. In the next two classes, you'll probably spend, or at least the majority of them, in working through, right, how evaluation works, how you're going to organize your ideas, uh, how you're going to present them, what the format and requirement of a magazine article is. Okay, and then I will finally assign this as homework to you, so you'll write it out, and once you've done that, we'll come back to it to review it, and in the meantime, we'll move on to, right, the composition. Not now, for the time being, just a sec. Let me check something. Uh, writing an article. I think we can briefly go over this at the moment. So we do have some time. So yeah, let's take a look at this, right? Writing an article. So that's what your task is. This is a Cambridge document for, guiding you on the requirements of writing an article. They've given you an overview of why you would want to do it. You want to inform or persuade the reader, give a balanced argument, both sides, right? Different perspectives, and the article in newspapers and magazines might express particular viewpoints. Uh, the way you use language and organize your ideas when writing an article will depend on the audience. So all of that comes over here as well. The tips for writing an article. Wait, you can't see that, can you? No, my bad. Just a sec. It opened up in a different window. You guys are just sitting there quietly. There you go. Can you see that? Right, so this is what I was talking about. right? The overview that I just spoke out, tips for writing an article. So the audience, in this case, your audience is young people. Don't need the highlighter anymore. All right, so the audience is young people. When you're writing it, you do not usually know your readers personally, and so you will need to think about their likely interest before you're writing it. How you expect or want your audience to react. So do you want them to take an interest, right? You'd want to be semi-formal in most cases, but since over here you know it's young readers, you can be a bit more casual, not completely informal, right? Uh, Semi-formal, but a bit more casual on the casual side. You need to decide on your tone, so how you want to sound to the reader, right? So, right, if it's young people, you're also a young person, right? Maybe you want to be persuasive, maybe you want to be, right, well, interesting, you want to connect. So before deciding on your tone, imagine your article being read out loud and how that might sound. For example, an article reviewing a film may be humorous, even sarcastic, but that would not work well for more serious readers or topics. Right? So because this is for young people, you have to be informative as the informative points in the text. You can also be humorous. Okay, what is the purpose? So, right, is it to persuade? So you want them to agree with you. You want them to think about different points of view, definitely, because you're giving the for and against. Do you want them to decide for themselves, or do you want to push a particular side of the argument? Right? Do you need to sound reliable or choose words that strongly convey a particular emotion? Right? How to keep your readers' interest. So this is all about your vocabulary and sentence structure. Right? Yeah. Try to include a range of grammatical structures and relevant vocabulary. So relevant vocabulary meaning you obviously have your general everyday vocabulary, then you've got some topic specific vocabulary, some subject specific vocabulary. So you might want to look that up. How to organize it. Right now, this organization 1, 2, 3 is not how many paragraphs you're going to have. Right? This is just the organization as in the flow. So you're going to have an introduction where you're going to engage the reader's interest and introduce the argument. Then you're going to develop the actual points, that's the body or the chunk, and then you're going to draw them all together, give a conclusion, express your viewpoints. That would be the end. You want them to be paragraphed properly, so there's some things that we have to cover. It's not a detailed topic, but I'll leave it for next time. Right? How paragraphing works. Right? To offer a full explanation of a particular point. The introduction, right, and the headline. The headline should tell your reader in one go what would they expect from the article, right? So they need to be some headlines to grab attention, but not over the top, right? Not exaggerated. Showing connection between your points. So using linking words such as in addition, likewise, similarly. Again, right now I'm not asking you to attempt the article. I've given you a task of rephrasing, and I'm giving you an additional task as well. Find some points, like 2, 3, 4 points at least, other than these, either in favor or against. So here's your task. Rephrase, pick a side. Are you in favor of traveling abroad or are you against traveling abroad? Okay, pick a side and find additional points which are not given in these two texts. So something new, right? That is your homework. for next class. And the side that you pick, try to find, if you're finding 3 or 4 points, so either have 2 or 2 or 3 or 1, and try to lean towards the points with the points towards the side that you are going to choose, right? For example, you are in favor of traveling, so you want more points that highlight the advantages of traveling abroad. So that is your homework. Now over here is given a sample article about online friendship, and there is no grade over here, right? So I'll just briefly show it to you again, right? I'll come back to this when you're actually writing it out. They put in annotations. So for example, using a heading that's relevant to your topic, so that's annotated over here. You can obviously see organization in paragraphs, what's good, what's not. And then at the end of this document, oh, they don't have it. They have it for okay, they have it for the 0510. So there's no additional analysis by the examiner. Anyway, all right, so you have this. We'll go, as I mentioned, we'll go over it again when we actually have the assignment to write. So yeah, I'll continue this in the next class, and by then, hopefully, you have done your part, and that's all for right for the moment. Any questions? Okay, then I'll see you guys next time. Allah.